Welcome to the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica, the podcast for people who want to learn how to be the most encouraging person on the planet and enhance their encouragement superpowers. Now here's your host, Justin.
How's it going, everybody? If you don't know who I am, I'm Justin Fatica, and I'm here to let you know that we're on the most encouraging podcast on the planet. Somebody asked me if it was the most encouraging podcast on the planet. The guest that's coming on asked me that, and I'm telling you right now, we're here to show you that you can be the most encouraging person on the planet, to build people up, to see that they're good, that they're valued, that they matter. That is what we are called to in life. And I hope that's what you're called to. I don't care if you're an atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Jew, Muslim, Christian, Catholics, even you. I might be a Catholic through and through. I might be a Christian with all my heart and soul, but mark my words, every single person on the planet better ask themselves, what does it mean to be encouraging? What does it mean to make a difference? And I can tell you, this next guest is an encourager. This person is somebody that can help all of us fight the challenge of cynicism, the challenge of mocking others, the challenge of putting others down. Because this person is a friend of mine, and actually, like, she shouldn't be a friend of mine. Because it's funny in life, they always bring, and I know the big dog upstairs does this, when he brings unique people into our lives to teach us that every single one of us can be friends, no matter how uniquely different we are or how much we are the same, no matter what our hobbies are or our hobbies aren't, that we can come together, different strokes for different folks, but we can all become friends. And this guest, I actually want to let you know, she's an American columnist. She's an editor at large of the National Review magazine, has worked there since 1997. Hopefully that doesn't give away anything. Went to CUA, we know that Catholic University of America, and studied philosophy and politics. She works tirelessly in the pro-life movement and is a chair of Cardinal Dolan's Pro-Life Commission in New York. She's an author, a speaker, and they nicknamed her K-Lo. I won't give her the nickname I have for, but I'll tell you what, it's a good one. But she is an encouragement, and she actually helps us. And she's on the board of advisors for us, and helps us to do the right things in our life to make a difference for young people. And this is Kathryn Jean Lopez. So welcome, Kathryn Jean Lopez. How you doing today?
Good to see you, Justin. And truer things have never been said about how we shouldn't even be friends. This doesn't make any sense. And yet it makes perfect sense because God has a better plan than the rest of us have. One of my favorite things to do is to tell Hard as Nails missionaries they need to read more.
Yeah.
Because I love to live in books.
Yeah, I'm like, let's go do something. She's let's go read something. So she's the promoter of reading. I'm the promoter of doing. If you put that together, we'd be a brilliant person. So
yeah,
I guess
that is actually the perfect balance. Yeah.
You got to do both. You got to.
Right.
Can you do reading? I guess you could do reading. All right.
Reading is an action. Yes, it is.
All right.
Just
it's an action.
Just
so
like praying is an action. People don't believe praying is an action.
Well, that's one way that I think you keep encouraged is through your prayer life. And tell everybody here, they might not know who you are, but how did you, in your own life discover God? I mean, how did you in your life make a commitment to dedicate yourself to God, to pro-life, to the faith, to the church? How'd that happen?
Well, I was blessed to have parents who raised me in the Catholic faith. And, at some point you have to make some choices about whether or not it's going to be your own or not, and it comes in various levels. But when I was a student at Catholic University, this is one of the things I would attribute it to. I had some challenges. Catholic University at that time was kind of ashamed of its Catholicity and wasn't quite sure what it was. And I thought that was problematic because it's like the whole point of the Catholic University of America is we're going to show people Jesus Christ, right? Not be afraid of that.
Of course.
So anyway, I got into some controversies on campus, and that was the time where I really had to pray well and really trust God that I wasn't just this crazy kid, that maybe he was calling me to do something here. And I have to say, I was so impressed by some of the friendships that I made, like I remember one of my friends who remains one of my closest friends, who Father Tad. He had friends who had no interest in whatever fight I was battling, but they knew I was a decent person and I was Tad's friend, and so they supported me, and they were wonderful encouragers, right? You can encourage people to be encouragers, I think, just by being authentic, and being loving to people. And I was struck by how they had no particular interest in my cause. But they saw that, like, I'm somebody they should support and encourage, and that was supporting and encouraging in them. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful lesson. It was probably more important than anything I learned in school.
Yeah, and that's one way we're alike, because we can create controversy. I would never think you could create controversy. I mean, anybody could be like, that guy could create some controversy. He seems like a guy. You don't seem controversial, but you are. And I think that right now in our country, there's a lot of controversies going on, and
Right.
we need more encouragers. But like when you went through that, like when you were in college and you got pushback, how did you not? Because I know anybody who has a belief system, whatever their belief system, listening to this, and I really encourage atheists to listen to this show. I encourage people that don't believe in God, because everybody needs to know how to be encouraged despite what their belief system is. What got you through that? You said prayer. You said you had people that didn't believe. That's an interesting, because I had the same journey when I had the HBO movie on my life. And like, I was so surprised that these people who didn't even believe what I believed were my biggest encouragers in the time of need. Like, talk about that in society. What do we need right now when we have all these different belief systems? Because it seems like so many people are confused. How do we get through that?
Well, one of the things I've been struck by, because as you mentioned, I do a lot of writing and speaking, and sometimes I'm speaking to conservative audiences, which is I work for a conservative magazine, or Catholic audiences, or Christian audiences, or faith-based audiences. But sometimes I'm in a secular audience, and I'm kind of the token, conservative, or the token believer. And what I'm always struck by, and I always give thanks to God for, is often someone will come up to me afterward and say, look, I don't believe anything you say, or, I don't agree with you, or something like that, but you don't seem like you hate me, or, you seem like you don't treat people badly, sometimes all you can do is, first of all, be decent, right? But, if you're trying to convince somebody, and in America, we always want to like win, and right now. And so if I have a point of view, I want you at the end of this conversation to agree with me completely. No, it doesn't work that way. You have to have long-term relationships with people. So in like a speech or a podcast or something, if you just open the door a little bit, that's a win. That's um I'm going to forget this, so I'm going to tell you this right now. When I talked to your missionaries on retreat, I forgot to do this. So I started, this is a heart earring, okay? When I there was like a year where I spent almost every day outside Planned Parenthood in New York, sidewalk counseling and praying. And I realized one morning, I was across the street from Planned Parenthood in Manhattan, Lower Manhattan, Bleecker Street, praying the rosary. And sometimes I was cowardly about that. Sometimes I would have the rosary in my pocket, but sometimes I wouldn't. Sometimes I would have it out. And again, I'm quietly not even doing it out loud. And a woman passed by and she said, "Put that away." I was just like, I'm just like praying the rosary. I'm not like throwing daggers at Planned Parenthood, And so from that day forward, I started wearing heart earrings every time I went outside Planned Parenthood, because I thought maybe it just softens me a little bit. Like, if they see a rosary as a dagger, like, how can you see a like
Did,
Hallmark
did,
heart?
did the heart, did that work? Did that work?
I don't know that it worked, but
Yeah.
in my mind it worked.
What you're saying is the same thing I say is don't get if I got a tattoo, I'd be in big trouble. You know what I mean? Like, so don't, but if I wore heart earrings around,
I don't recommend you wearing earrings, Justin.
you don't think that'd be good for me? I actually
No,
had
I don't
nobody,
think it would be a good look.
I don't usually tell people this. I had 2 earrings when I was in college. I did. I'm
Did
not
you
gonna lie.
really?
I did back in the day. I wanted to be, a little, but then I realized, I didn't need any of that. I think I was a little edgy already. So no, but I think one story you share, and I asked you share for writing in a book that we're doing together, and I was super touched. And this is really why I think you're one of the more encouraging people that I have in my life. And I say that sincerely because when you're different than someone, you don't do the same thing someone does. And then if you go a step further, we're on the same page belief system. But when you don't have the same belief system, and I think this is what Jesus Christ did better than anybody, he would never ever have a label or have a group affect how he gaze at people, love people, and care for people. And you do a great job of that as well. And I just want you to share with our audience. I mean, I think this is a story for everybody, whatever side of the block you're on, wherever you're at. How can we love people? And share a story about that young person you loved at the Planned Parenthood.
Well, I'm going to start by being super honest here. I live in New York City. I try to give people the gaze of love as I'm walking down the street. Sometimes that is a mess and it gets you in trouble.
Yes.
You have to be prudent about it too.
Especially in New York.
Yes, exactly. A woman walking by herself should be careful with men, things like that. It's it is challenging, and we have to be prudent, and it can be very heartbreaking, honestly. Sometimes sometimes a homeless person is just insistent on you have to give money right now, and it doesn't end well. And anyway, I just say that because I'm not perfect at this, but I certainly try, and I don't want to ignore people, right? I think trying to acknowledge the presence of another human life who is made in the image and likeness of God is important.
So important.
But so this one particular day, I wasn't even actually out there at the time. I was just passing by, and there was a woman talking to a young girl who turned out to be 17, and she had taken the first abortion pill, because most abortions in America now are by pill, which most people don't know. Two pills, chemical abortions, and so this sidewalk counselor was talking about how what that's going to look like, because obviously this all happens in your bathroom. So many girls and women are alone, as an abortion is a forced ending of the pregnancy, and so obviously you can imagine what that looks like. But we don't talk about that. And so anyway, I saw the horror in this girl's eyes, and she said, "I'm not even for abortion." So I went over to her, and I said hello and asked her name, and acknowledged the obvious. I'm so sorry you're going through this. It's such a hard day, and the sign behind me, "Every person is a gift," is from the Sisters of Life, who are nuns in New York, and other places now too.
Who I love, and they're great encouragers.
They're tremendous encouragers. And when they were founded by Cardinal O'Connor, who was the Archbishop of New York at the time, about 35 years ago, he said, "If you're pregnant and in need, come to the Catholic Church." And his answer to what the Catholic Church would do were the Sisters of Life. And he literally put out an ad asking for women to come to live lives where they would be encouragers and actually welcome women in their homes, in their convents, and their babies. And so they're like mothers to mothers. It's a really beautiful thing, and they're really kind of pro-life credibility in many ways. So I talked to her about them. I said, I have these beautiful friends. They're Catholic nuns, and they love to help women, and they happen to be like a 5-minute Uber ride away from this particular abortion clinic at the time. And she was interested, but her mom was insisting she had the abortion. She had to go pick up her little brother from day camp or something. And so later on in the day, because you can reverse, if you've only taken the one pill with hormone therapy, essentially you can reverse what started to happen. So it's possible to save the baby at that point if you haven't taken the second pill. And so I wanted the sisters to talk to her in case she was open to reversing it, which she was, to talk to a doctor. So after she picked up her brother, she did talk to 2 of the Sisters of Life. I talked to them on the phone, and given them her number. And during the phone conversation with her and the sisters, her mom took away the phone. And so that was that. The abortion happened. But fast forward months, she is pregnant again. And it's later term, so you can't have a chemical abortion. She goes to the same Planned Parenthood, and amazingly, mercifully, whoever's describing what's going to happen in the surgical abortion says, and then they stop the heartbeat of the baby. I don't think she used baby, but she used the word heartbeat, and the girl would have nothing of it. And so she left, and she contacted the Sisters of Life. And she has a baby now, a little girl. And I thought that initial day that I was a total failure. The girl was having an abortion, and I needed to save her and save the life. And wonderful if that's possible, if that's what can happen. But we never know when we're instruments, if we're like not trying to be prideful, not to try to be the savior of anyone. I have a savior. I don't need to be one,
Yeah.
I'm weak. That's why I need Jesus,
Yeah.
the seeds are planted, and only God knows what is happening in a particular moment, so often. And this is why the charism that Hard as Nails has for sensitivity to sin and suffering is so important, because we can never know all the suffering that another person is enduring. Sometimes the person himself doesn't know all the suffering he's enduring. But by being present and being loving and receiving that person as they are, with the love that we know from Jesus, which is why we wake up in the morning. Those of us who have the gift of the Catholic faith, the Christian faith. Only God knows what is happening. There are other instances. I remember one day too, I probably told this to the missionaries on retreat. There was so often when you spend time outside of abortion clinics, you just see girls who are just devastated, and after they've had an abortion. And I remember one day I wanted to give the boyfriend, at least he was there, and he was a rare one. He looked like he was hurt too. Sometimes the guys would be super callous, maybe protecting themselves, but super callous, not even opening the doors of their cars and stuff. But he looked more compassionate, and so I tried to give him a post-abortion healing brochure, because the Sisters of Life do retreats and walk with women after they've had abortions. They don't abandon women because they've had abortions. And he wouldn't take it. And I kind of was devastated and felt like a failure. But no, I realized, even just like being present, like even today, that was probably like 3 years ago, and I still think of them and pray for them, whoever they are, and that's a real thing. Like we were saying before, praying is real.
Yeah, and I think what people need, whatever belief system they have, they need what you're talking about. They need presence. Whoever you are out there, your presence matters. Your presence matters, and that's what you gave that girl. And the first time she had the abortion, you'd say you're a failure. The second time she didn't have the abortion, you say you're a success. I say you just being present to people is success. That's being encouraging.
That's
And
the
right
lesson,
now,
right?
yeah, right now more than ever, right? We need presence. A lot of people say, my kid doesn't care, or hey, I'm a coach. They say, oh, my players don't care, or they say, or the missionary, or people we're leading, or our staff, or they don't care. Well, it doesn't matter whether they care. What matters is you show up. You show up and you be present and you be there. And that's what we have to do to be an encouragement to people right now more than ever. We got to show up. We are such an isolated society. We are closing off our hearts, our whole being to other people, especially people that believe different things than we believe.
Right.
For me, my favorite people to hang out with are people that don't believe what I believe. People that disagree. And why they're my favorite people to hang out with is I know that they sincerely care about me, because they're not caring about me because I'm checked all the boxes, right? I'm pro-life. I'm conservative. I'm a coach because I coach with them. Or no, they know, wow, I believe 100% different than he, but he is in my life. He wants to be with me, and I want to be with him. And for me, that's the Jesus I follow. The Jesus I follow is he wants to be with me when I'm messing up. You know what I mean? Which I mess up all the time.
Me too.
Yeah. And so when I mess up all the time and he still wants to be with me, I want to make sure I'll be with those that are messing up and struggling. And 1 Peter 4:8, above all, let your love for another be intense. I love that, intense. Like, let your love for another be intense. Don't let it be wimpy. Hey,
You've definitely got the intense thing down.
Hey, I don't know here. I'm gentle. I'm a gentle guy. Love because love covers a multitude of sins. And so you've been, how many years have you been doing this? Like serving God since you really dedicated to serving God, like since you're 18 years old? How long? A long time.
Well, I've always been attracted to writing and public policy, and because I know public policy, it can make differences in people's lives for good or ill. And so that means I've always wound up talking about controversial issues and kind of representing controversial issues. You can't work for a conservative magazine and walk into the Thanksgiving dinner, or whatever, and not have people talking about controversial things with you, which, to be honest with you, I don't like being confrontational. So it's kind of like God's sense of humor.
Yes. But, what are some of the more controversial things people have said to you or done to you? Like when you came out and said, this is what I believe, and this is what I think is right, and this is what matters. What's some of the most discouraging things people have done to you or said to you?
I got kicked out of a dorm when I was an undergraduate for that controversy that I was in. I had
Really? You got kicked out? I never got kicked out of a dorm. I've been kicked out of churches, but not dorms.
No. There was a vote that I had ruined the community because of this controversy on campus, and so that's okay. I'm an introvert. I got a room by myself on the other side of campus, and the happy part of this story, is every once in a while God reminds us that there really is a plan. And as you know, not too long ago, I was given an honorary doctorate from that same university, and the president
I couldn't believe that.
Well, I really couldn't.
I thought you were always praised by those guys. I thought they were your best friends.
No. And so, and the remarkable thing about this is the current administration did not know about what had happened 35 or so years ago. And so the president says to me as he's giving me the doctorate, "We're so proud of you." And I thought, if you had told 20-year-old me that was going to happen, that's crazy. But I do think that's like a little sign from God. You know, some people call it God winks, or, you know, people have different names for it, but just like confirmation that, like, you know, as so many of us can feel like total failures in the day to day because we know our weaknesses and we know our sins. And every once in a while, and this has been my experience, God will just say, "Look, I'm here and you're with me." You know, God encourages us. I mean, I think that's why we have to encourage people, because my experience of God is he encourages. And so, and I know how transformational that can be. This is a super silly thing, but I mentioned the Sisters of Life. Sometimes, you know, I'm traveling, you know how this goes. Traveling is so exhausting.
Oh yeah.
And you're given speeches, and sometimes you don't know what if there are any fruits from it. And every once in a while I'll just be like, is this the right thing? Why am I doing this? Am I really following a plan? And I will see a Sister of Life somewhere where I shouldn't see a Sister of Life, like in the airport. Like if I'm hanging out on the block where they live, that doesn't count.
One thing.
But one day I remember I was about to lead a pilgrimage in Lourdes and Fatima, and I didn't know what I was doing. And I saw a Sister of Life at Newark Airport. And I'm like, okay, God, I get it. All right, fine. I'll keep going. I'll get on the plane.
So your God winks are Sisters of Life. My
Sisters
God.
of Life.
So that's hilarious because God works different with me. My God winks are I'm speaking at an event, and all of a sudden I'm done. And the teacher looks at me and goes, "Hey, you know who that kid was that was crying, that was impacted by your message?" I'm like, "No, who was it?" "That was Sylvester Stallone's daughter, Rocky Balboa." That happened to me. God was like, and then I go, "Oh, you got to give him this Bible." And 5 days later, I got a Bible signed by Rocky Balboa in my mailbox.
I didn't know that story.
No, yeah, I framed
that would be your God wink, yeah.
Yeah, that was my. See, I get Rocky Balboa. You get the Sisters of Life.
That sounds right. God knows us.
That's so, but it's true, and I think people.
Speaking of encouraging, Rocky Balboa, the movie Rocky Balboa, the one after Adrian dies, and
that one,
that incredible scene with his son. I mean, such an encouragement to fathers about the importance of fatherhood. Yeah, I love that movie. I probably shouldn't love that movie. I'm not into weightlifting and things.
You're not allowed to like it. It's not intellectual enough for you.
It makes me cry.
It makes you cry. That's beautiful. It makes me cry too. My wife laughs at me because what I do is every night I put on a different movie, but they're only like 5 or 6 movies that I put on. So like and one of them, like I was watching Rocky 3 last night. It's like,
poor Mary.
I fall asleep. I say, "Lord, I love you." I put Rocky on, bam, it's over for me.
I only watch the first Rocky and Rocky Balboa. Both of them make me cry.
Wow, that's impressive. But no,
we'll have to watch Rocky sometime.
I'll tell you what, that would be entertaining.
That would be very entertaining. We'll do that with the missionaries.
No, but if you don't know, you know, some of the guests might not know, but she's talking about our missionaries. You know, some of them have been on the podcast and what have you, and been an encouragement to the world. There are young people that like give up their lives for a year or two, and she comes and gives talks and trains them and helps us with that. And if you're thinking that young people can't bring hope nowadays, there are so many young, and that's something that I love about the young people I work with. They give me such great hope, and they're a big. And I think a lot of us adults of my age and older, we stop hanging out with young people. Oh, you know, I'm older. But I think something to tell anybody, to be an encouragement. You know, you've been an encouragement to our young people, but they've been an encouragement too. And I think you got to to be an encouragement, you got to hang out with young people. That's what I believe. Young people keep your spirit going. How do young people, not just ours, but in your life, how do they keep you encouraged?
I remember during COVID, there, everybody had lots of different struggles. And there was one day where I heard children playing for the first time in months. And I thought, oh my gosh, like that's one of the things I was missing so much, having children around. Or but yeah, no, being around the missionaries is just so encouraging because they so want to be good, and they know they're not perfect, and they know their struggles, and so they want to help others, and they truly believe that God is real and that God can heal them from their wounds, and they want to help other people on that journey too. And that's not what, the sense we get about young people. I know even this summer, at National Review and the National Review Institute where I work, one day it was kind of an impromptu lunch I bought for our interns. And we're conservative intellectual magazine, and so the interns differ. Sometimes they think they're the smartest thing in the world, and oh my goodness. And I kind of find that discouraging. I try to introduce the concept of humility. But oh my goodness, this summer they were so smart kids. I mean, Harvard and Yale and all these things. And smart kids, talented kids, but humble kids, full of gratitude, full of questions. As much as I'm encouraged by them, they recognized, like, she's put in a few years here,
Yeah.
like, and asking not just questions about like success, asking questions about faith, and asking questions about the things that are hurting people in politics today. And
Wow.
even this made me so happy too. There's one boy who describes himself as an economic libertarian, and so he doesn't want a lot of government involvement, and which is fine. But I talked to him about how, one of my hobby horses after Roe versus Wade was overturned is, we got to help families like never before, and single moms. And it's not easy to be a parent, as you well know, Justin, and
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
not cheap to be a parent either, And
Not at
so
all.
I understand why people choose abortion. And it's not just finances, but finances are one of the things, but emotional support and all these things. Anyway, so I said, and I was kind of looking at the economic libertarian, and I said, government spends money. Government needs to spend money on families. And he totally agreed. And I almost cried. I was just so, because he got it. Like, so these kids were just full of gratitude. One of them said he would sleep under an underpass to work at National Review for the summer. And I just thought,
Wow.
and he meant it. He meant it. He was just really grateful to be there. And I just find that so encouraging. But also in Catholic ministries like Hard as Nails, yeah, the kids help me keep going forward,
Yeah, and I think right now we can't, really we've separated ourselves. What the marketing genius is for the culture right now is to separate. Hey, you go to Ann Taylor, so you dress at Ann Taylor, and then this person goes to Abercrombie and Fitch, and they dress there. And really, the marketing like genius, through social media, like these videos are for the youth, and these videos are for the old people, and it's really created this totally separate cultures. You're a part of the millennials, and you're a part of Generation Z. So we've separated ourselves so much, like that it ends up creating such a big boundary when the greatest gift we could ever receive are the 70. My grandmother, she's come on a couple times. 100, she'll be 105 this year. But
Wow.
this lady's brilliant. This lady's a genius of her times. And she said it's the hardest generation for anybody to grow up in. And I said, why is that? And you'll love this. I'd love you to do an article on this one. And I want to hear, by the way, don't let me forget about some of the great articles you've written this year. What were you touched? Some of the things you've written, because I read. People don't, think that I'm a big reader. But why? See that? When
Justin
you're
Fatica
laughing.
went to college. He reads books.
Master's degree. I did get a I don't tell like. Look, I'm not here. I'm not one of these people that when you go up and speak, I don't have a master's degree. Right? But I have a philosophy degree too, by the way. I don't know if you knew that.
Well, I have a doctorate I didn't earn, so there's that.
That's it, yo. I'll tell you what. I want one to see.
You don't get smarter than that.
See, let me tell you something. They give people like you one of those because you would have got it anyways. No, but my grandmother has this great thing. She says, look, young people are struggling so much because they have so many options. One, and I agree with that. And she said the second thing, she says they're suffering so much because there is no right and wrong anymore. She says it's so hard. Like I strive to say what I believe is right, and no one agrees with me, and they all have different points of views. She says that's just confusing.
Right.
So what are your thoughts on growing up in this generation different than when you grew up, and like what would you write about that? What's your message for a young person who's growing up right now?
Well, first of all, I mean, having your grandmother on is one of the coolest things you can do. One of the things we saw during COVID was how we discard elderly people when people aren't productive anymore in the ways we think that we need to be productive. We put them in warehouses sometimes, and that's not cool. And that's wrong in how we're treating them, but it also, we're losing out. One of the things I write a lot about is religious persecution in other countries.
Okay, yeah.
I'm not talking about like a war on Christmas or, because they put holiday cups out instead of Christmas stuff. That doesn't keep me up at night.
No.
But people who actually, because they go to mass on Sunday, their lives are in danger and sometimes die, and lots of other stories. But what the point of me saying this is, I got an award for that. People come up to you and they say, "Oh, you're so good." No, this is selfish. These people make me better because they have challenges I don't have and I couldn't conceive of, and I, first of all, I owe it to them as my brothers and sisters in Christ, and as fellow human beings, because some of them aren't Christians. They're, other minority religions who get persecuted as well, but Christianity is the major persecuted religion in the world. And Pope Francis,
that's unbelievable. Isn't it, tell me before I forget this, isn't it like Christianity the most martyrs in the past 100 years than ever? What's the stat on that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Pope Francis talks about how there are more martyrs now than there were in the early church when Christians being fed to lions.
No one would believe that.
No,
so
and
Christians
part
are
of
the
it is
most
because that's
discouraged.
not something the media talks about.
Would you say Christians are the most discouraged? Then they're the most discouraged if they're the most killed.
But no, what I'll tell you is one of the things that I have been so humbled by is I remember one day interviewing an Iraqi priest who had been tortured, and I won't go into the details, but it was bad, and they wanted him to renounce his faith, and he didn't. And I said to him, "You must have been the most incredible, priest." And he said, "No, I'm just like anybody else, just trying my best, a sinner." And he said, you would do the same thing. You would not renounce your faith either, because God would give you the grace. And I cried because I had been at the time an advocate of the Iraqi war. And at the time, I hadn't really given a lot of thought to what it would do to the Christians. And it really put the Christians in a more difficult position. And that, I mean, that's an argument for somewhere else, but I felt a personal culpability at that moment, because I had published lots of pieces and written myself. But why I tell you this is because he was just grateful that I was interviewing him right then, that I cared. It's like you said, presence, that I was giving him the time of day, that I wanted to tell his story. I have found so many people. Yes, there are lots of Christians in Iraq and elsewhere who are discouraged, because the world isn't paying attention. But when we do pay attention, they are so grateful, and I'm so humbled by their gratitude. And they are constantly a reminder to me that presence, like, I can't solve their problem, right? Nigeria's problems are not going to be solved by me, but I cannot ignore what's happening to Christians in Nigeria.
Yeah, it's interesting that like out of all the topics you picked, like that was the one that like you like love writing about, right? I'm sure it ebbs and flows as a writer. I'm a writer as writing books here and there. You're a writer every day of your life, 24/7 pretty much. I hang out with you. You're always writing or you're always planning to write. That's all you do with your life. I think that's what you should be. Just put on your tombstone, 24/7 writer. All right, like
No,
like all.
the worst thing is I tweet at mass. I think you've
Oh
probably
my goodness, you're one of those disrespectful people.
Well, no, because I want, if I hear a good homily, I want to share it with other people. So I'm even tweeting at mass.
So you're a professional church lady. That's basically what you are. No, but I see you at mass when I go to church with you. You're back there like, oh. If I would do that, they'd probably throw me out of mass. So
probably. I have gotten in trouble for that.
Oh, you have? Hey, I'm all about it. But no, what makes that such? I mean, it's interesting, like that's the subject you pick that like really fuels you to write about. Like, why does that touch your heart so much to write about people who have been basically, mocked or, totally tortured for their faith? Like, why is that? Because of when you were younger, you connect with that, or have you thought about that?
It's because it's what happened to Jesus, right?
Yeah.
It's because we have to be open to it. But yeah, no, it's mostly because it's what happened to Jesus, but it's also because we talk a lot in the West about loneliness and people feel abandoned, and this is all real. And there's solidarity that we can have with people who are in situations that we can't even conceive of. And I also think that it has the possibility of putting things in context for us. I mean, I mentioned during COVID, I have sad stories I can tell you about isolation and whatever.
Yeah.
But a child in foster care or a child in a home where the churches were closed, but the liquor stores were open, right? So a bad marriage becomes a worse marriage under alcohol and isolation and maybe unemployment. And so these poor kids, I mean, there's so many people are suffering, but when our sufferings, which are sometimes little sufferings, sometimes they're huge sufferings, when they can draw us closer to other people who are suffering and who are suffering so much more than we are, especially the innocent, right? Like, you have resources and people in your life. So if something happened that was so terrible, you would be okay. You would know who to reach out to. But a poor innocent kid, a kid who has no family, one of the things in America today, and you know this because you speak so well. The first time I saw you speaking, I remember I had no idea what you were talking about. But there were these 12-year-old boys who were responding to you. And 12-year-old boys need men who get them and who speak to them and draw them out of themselves, right? There are children in America today who age out of foster care, who purposely get themselves arrested so they have somewhere to live because they have no one in their life to turn to. And that's why the charism of Hard as Nails, sensitivity to sin and suffering, is so important, and why prioritizing encouragement in a real way, not in a, like, I tease your missionaries sometimes. One of your taglines is "You're amazing," right? And you really mean it. But if you're around Hard as Nails, like 24/7, I don't want to be told I'm amazing.
You're amazing.
But people need to know that they're capable of so much. One of the reasons I write about pro-life things so much and try to highlight pregnancy care centers and maternity homes is because abortion says to women that they're not capable of amazing things, and they are. They just need people to walk with them. And, and likewise with men. And I think this is a specific a particular charism you have to let them know, like, they're not losers. Like, you're capable of so much more. People need that.
Yeah. And in our film on the basketball team I've been coaching, that like speaks of that. These boys, one of our boys became homeless in the midst of me coaching him. You know what I mean? And for people to watch this kid succeed, and now he's gonna live. I want you to meet him, by the way. He's living by you actually in New Rochelle.
Okay.
Because he's gonna play basketball at the D. You should go watch him play randomly. He would be so encouraged at the Monroe Community College in New Rochelle, which isn't far from you, New Rochelle,
all right,
New York.
I'll follow up.
Yeah. But like just to watch him, and now he's playing. And another kid who when he was 12 years old would walk to church miles because he lived in Africa, and it was his dream to play in America basketball. And so he would walk to the courts in Africa because they'd be far for miles, walk to church for miles, and he just got a scholarship, to a nursing school to play basketball in Rochester, New York. But that's what you're talking about. I've been able to live that. Like everything we have, and people, you can disagree with me, but you share. If you don't agree with me, I hope you disagree, but give me a better answer than this. God gave me every penny I have. God gave me every breath I have. God gave me every gift I have. And it's my job to take the gifts he's given me and give them back. And I believe that's your job. That's what you're doing. As imperfect as you are, Kalo, you're imperfect. As imperfect as I am, right? I'm imperfect. That's no excuse not to be encouraging. Now, what do you say about somebody, though, that believes, and I'm just interested in your thoughts on this. They believe something exactly opposite of us, right? They're getting rejected because they're a hardcore atheist, or they're getting rejected because they're hardcore pro-choice. Like, what are your thoughts about that? Like, most people would say, that's not something for me to talk about, but that's what this show's all about. Like, we have to address that too, don't you think? Like, because like there's a big problem here. We can't even do this, dialogue or
Right.
We can't even communicate anymore. I think if you're going to hurt somebody because they believe something different than you, this is a big problem. What are your thoughts?
Two things. One of them, you were asking what were the major discouragements. I here in New York, there's a group that had me on a wanted sign, a pro-abortion group.
You gotta send me that picture.
Yeah, I should find it and send it to you. I should probably.
I would put it in my office for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say I should have it on the door of my office. But so I've been at events where I have had pro-life discussions that have been protested in a very angry way, irrational way, really. I've I've looked into people's eyes as they've screamed at me, saying unbelievably awful things about not both about me, but more about human life. And all I see, and I've been to many women's marches and things, and I just see the sadness on people's faces. I see and the pain in their eyes. It's unmistakable. But so there's that, and that's why sensitivity to sin and suffering is so important. And being able to just see those people as human beings and not people who are screaming at you. Obviously they're screaming at you, but there's so much more going on. And so I believe that anyone who is convicted about, say, abortion, pro-life beliefs, we have to look with love on people who have hardened beliefs about abortion, because I guarantee you there's been pain in their lives that have hardened them to that position. But the other thing that I think is important, I think people get onto, pick a tribe and kind of, start yelling at each other. But I don't think everybody's as hardened as our politics suggests. For before the Dobbs decision, which really, there's a lot of confusion and a lot of, I say every abortion headline is like pouring salt into open wounds, whatever the story is, including what I write, which I try to be compassionate about, because so many people have been involved in abortions. So many women have had abortions. And so bearing that in mind, but also knowing, and this is something that encourages me, again, right now, so many different laws, so many different fights. But consistently for like 2 decades almost, we saw poll numbers that showed that most people are kind of in the middle. Even people who say they're pro-choice, they just want to know that women have options, that a woman, a girl, who got raped or whatever the terrible story is, has options. And that's why we need to be compassionate and inundate people with love and know what the resources are. One of the things I say, I speak to pro-life groups a lot. And if you're known as against abortion, do people in your life, young people in your life, know that they could come to you if they found themselves in an unplanned pregnancy? And my fear is we're the last people they would come to, because they're afraid we would judge them.
That's a great point.
And so we need to live our lives so that, we try to let people know that every person is a gift, and that abortion is wrong, but that we get it. Life happens, like you can both teach your children to save sex for marriage, but also know that I love you, whatever happens. Sorry?
I say save kisses.
Even better.
Because if they save kisses, then they won't, hopefully they'll save sex. But if they save sex, they're probably going to have sex. That's right there, everybody.
Okay, all right, fair enough. But at the same time, they know if they make a mistake, they can come to you because you love them.
Yeah, that's always what I ask my son. He's the oldest, 17, such a special gift, a gentle warrior, such a gift, Jojo. And I say, hey, look, whatever he goes, Dad, I just don't want to do what's wrong. He said, I go, look, you're going to do wrong. You're going to do right. But please, would you just come to me?
That is what we have to communicate to the world. And I fear that the church, people don't see the church that way.
Well, I do want to say something. This is important. I mean, I could talk all day with you because, I love this stuff. This is so much fun. But one topic that I want to have to get to is, I think that happens with like the emotional intelligent and the intellectual intelligent. And I think that we keep missing each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think you and I being on the show now, if you don't understand that, I would be probably thrown in the emotionally intelligent range of theory. You'd be probably more closer to, even though you have a great emotional intelligence, you're in the intellectual intelligent. And I think we're trying, like, we've also siloed ourselves away from one another as well. And I see that within the church. I see that within government. I see that within the movie industry. I see that within docufilms. Across the board, we kind of silo ourselves intellectually and emotionally from one another as groups. And I think something I want to say thank you to is that you haven't done that with me. And I want to say I appreciate. I mean, I know it sounds like it's a big deal in my
Yeah.
world. It's a big deal in my world. And I think what that
Well,
does is,
likewise, you could have been like, get this book lady away from me.
hey, wait a second. I've written books. I'm a book guy. Come on. No, you're like, but I think it's, it's funny. You're not just a book guy.
No, look at these books. I surround the books like I'm Linus with the blanket. I love my books.
Well, I'm not hugging my books. I'm hugging Rocky Balboa.
Right. But I'll cry right beside you with the Rocky movie.
Yeah, that's so funny. But no, so I think it's important. The point of this show is, if you're an atheist, I don't care who you are. If you're a Catholic, if you believe something different than me, or get on here. But I want to know the question: how do we become the most encouraging person on the planet? And we're going to really hold people accountable to this. So, Kathryn Jean Lopez, what would you say as practical ways, like, that you could really help people? Hey, look, do this. This will help you to be more of an encouraging person in this culture right now.
Well, a couple of things. I often think of Mother Teresa, and she talked about the importance of a smile. In New York City, you're told not to.
F you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, no, there was one time I came back from an international trip, and that was the first thing I heard at JFK Airport, and I thought, okay, I'm home.
Welcome to New York. Welcome
a smile,
to New York.
Making eye contact. Remembering, Mother Teresa also talked about how peace begins in the home. So often we're off trying to solve problems elsewhere, but do the people who are closest to us that God gave us, do they know that we really love them and accept them for who they are? You talked about how we segregate ourselves. We do it in so many ways, all the different identities that we hear in culture, they're false. Like, we're just, we're created by God. We're creatures, and we're adopted sons and daughters. And one of the issues I think a lot about too is same-sex attraction, and within the church, even so often,
sure.
People who have same-sex attraction feel segregated from people who don't. We can't do that. Even also in the church, like Spanish speakers and English speakers are often segregaed.
Yeah, for sure.
Can't do that, But one of the most important things too, I think, in terms of, first of all, never be transactional, and you're good at this, trying to encourage the person you're buying the ice cream from, or, sometimes they think you're crazy, but sometimes it's super encouraging. And sometimes, and this is about planting seeds, later on in the day, are they like, what was up with that dude? and you never know what God's working in them, but for longer term relationships, just remembering that, give it time, be patient, love people. Some of the most encouraging stories and testimonies I've heard are how, the atheist feminist who's pro-abortion is friends with the pro-life guy in college, and who goes to mass every day, and they have conversations as they're studying, and they learn things about one another that they would never know if they sectioned off, I can't be friends with her, or I can't be friends with him. No, receive people as they are. And there are things to learn, and we don't have to, win a conversion every hour of every day with people we meet. We just need to be present and love them and encourage them. So that might be a smile, or it might be listening to them. I mean, sometimes I feel like a total failure with homeless people in New York. Because there was one day recently where I think I was there for an hour and a half just listening.
Oh my goodness.
I didn't
Unbelievable.
do anything for her, but I listened to her, and it was presence, and I pray to God that made some kind of difference in her life. As dumb as I felt.
Well, that's important, and I think what's important, what we've gotten at here is that people need us. That
And we
person.
need people.
Yes, and we need people. But who's if you had one person out there like that you'd want to know how they keep encouraged, that's alive right now today, who would be that person? Like if you were to call on somebody and go, I've been asking this recently on with our guests, like who would you like to know? Like how do you stay encouraged? I would just like to know your way about you. Like mine would be Sylvester Stallone, because he gets beat up all the time. So, and he's always getting beat up. They're always knocking him out. How do you stay encouraged? But who would be your person?
Well, he signed your Bible. You should be able to ask him that question.
I should. I'm gonna ask him. His daughter was at my event.
You should be able to work this out.
I'm gonna.
I do often go back to the Sisters of Life because they see kind of the heart of darkness sometimes, and their encouragement is obviously Christ. And one of the things, people I think nuns are like angels or something floating, and they're real people who get discouraged.
They are. They get discouraged.
But part of the reason they can do the work that they do is they keep going back to God, and that there's a bigger plan, and that the sacrifice he made, guarantees us victory. And but I always go back to I don't know, if I were Pope Francis, I would be super discouraged by watching all the things that are being said. But I'm guessing Pope Francis doesn't pay attention to Twitter. But Pope John the 23rd used to say at the end of the day, and he was Pope at a difficult time in the church, with the Second Vatican Council and all. And he would say, all right, God, it's your church. I'm going to bed. And so I think that for believers, the super key encouragement is it's not about us.
Yeah, I love that. I love that because that's what my grandmother says. I always love talking about it, but that's what she always said. I go, how'd you live this long? She says, I just don't care. She goes, I just don't care. She goes, what am I going to do? She says, I'm nothing. And she goes, I don't worry. She says, if these people, I go, you said you wanted to die when you're 50. She said, I did want to die when I was 50. I go, I said, then you should have started worrying then, and then you would have died. No, but I appreciate you coming on here. I know you got a lot of writing to do. I probably took you away from writing. This was like your commercial break from writing. But I love your writing, and I'm very grateful, honestly. Every single person I've had in my life, I'm just I look back, and you're one of those people. And I think, how God did you bring this person into my life? And it was because he was loving me. And you're one of those people. I really do. I really think he's brought you into my life to show me a sincere, you're an authentic person. You are what you are. And I thank you for that. And I just love having encouraging people on here. And I can't wait, for more guests to share how they keep encouraged, because I think that's what we need right now. That's what my basketball team.
We need a lot of encouragement. Yeah,
we do, and
consistent too.
Yes, consistent. We can only do a few people consistently, but you are one of those people consistently, and I look forward to hanging out with you more and more and more. And let's just keep encouraging.
Being consistent about not being transactional. Every person, I try to pray in the morning about every person I'm going to encounter during the day, and to not ignore anybody. And sometimes a goofy smile actually makes a difference.
No, for sure. So what we're saying is get out there and encourage somebody. That's what Kathryn Jean Lopez is saying. And that's what I'm saying. We got to get out there. And if we do, we do. We fail, but give it everything you got. And I'm wondering if you're the most encouraging person on the planet. I know Kathryn Jean Lopez has got some encouraging action going on. So we'll keep it going. All right, Kathryn Jean Lopez. I didn't even tell him my nickname for you.
Yeah, I know. Go on. Go. And bye.
All right. We love you all. You're the best.
Thanks, Justin.
No problem.
Thanks for listening to the Encouragement Conquers All podcast with Justin Fatica. Make sure to subscribe and follow to be notified when the newest episodes of the podcast go live. You can find contact information and important links in the show notes. Stay tuned for the next episode.